You grew up believing that being a good person would be enough, that if you were honest, kind, helpful, the world would recognize it. That virtue by itself would protect you. But then the years came, and with them, silent frustration. You did everything right. You helped, gave in, swallowed what hurt you. And in the end, what did you get? Contempt, indifference, injustice. Maybe you've never said it out loud, but you feel like you're paying a high price for being good. You see manipulators winning, arrogant people getting promoted, the cunning being applauded, while you keep trying to prove you're worthy of respect without ever really receiving it. And this is where Machiavelli comes in, not as the villain you were taught, but as the first man who had the courage to speak the truth. Being good in a world that rewards cunning is a recipe for failure. This video is not about becoming cruel. It's about opening your eyes. It's about protecting your kindness with strategy. It's about stopping the exploitation and finally becoming someone no one dares to ignore. So take a deep breath and prepare to hear what no one had the courage to tell you until now. Machiavelli wrote, "A man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good." He wasn't cynical. He was observant. He saw what you've also noticed, but were afraid to admit: the real world doesn't reward goodness, it rewards usefulness. From a young age you were taught to trust, to help, to stay quiet, to swallow your feelings, because they told you that was the right thing to do. But no one told you that those same qualities, when not paired with firmness and strategy, become an open invitation to be exploited. Manipulative people don't target just anyone. They choose their victims. And guess who are the easiest ones? The kind, the fair, the conflict avoiders, the people pleasers. You became exactly that, a predictable target. And the worst part, you still think the problem is you, that maybe you should give more, be more patient. But what you really need is to open your eyes. You believe you're doing the right thing, helping, listening, giving in, being kind. And at times, it feels noble, until you start to notice a disturbing pattern. The same people you help disappear when you need them. The co-workers who miss deadlines are the first to dump their responsibilities on you. The friends who always ask for favors are the same ones who forget to ask how you're doing. You begin to wonder, am I the problem? Am I being too nice? But what you may not know is that there's a psychological, almost mathematical reason behind all this. Studies show that manipulative people have a radar trained to detect certain traits. They look for those who struggle to say no, are uncomfortable with conflict, are anxious about keeping peace at all costs. Above all, fear being seen as selfish. These traits don't come from nowhere. They're the result of years, sometimes decades, of social conditioning. From childhood, we were taught that being good means not causing trouble, not complaining, always helping, always accepting. But what no one told you is that when you fit that mold too well, you become a target. Just like Michael, the small business owner we mentioned before, who lost money because he blindly trusted someone who knew exactly where to aim, at his good faith. These people aren't using you by accident. They chose you because they sensed you wouldn't fight back. And you didn't. You didn't speak up, didn't confront, didn't demand respect. You swallowed it with a smile because you were trained to do that. But let's be clear, this is not virtue. This is emotional vulnerability disguised as nobility. Machiavelli once said, "Men are so simple and so obedient to present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived." You think you're being polite, fair, understanding, but the world sees it as weakness, and in the game of power, weakness always comes at a price. That's why the first step is awareness, to see what's happening, to admit that yes, you were chosen to be used. Not because you're bad, but because others saw a strategic flaw in you. You don't impose consequences. Once you realize this, everything changes. You begin to remember all the times you kept quiet to avoid conflict, all the days you did more than you should, and less for yourself, all the moments you pretended to be okay just to keep the peace. And finally, you see it. Your kindness became a trap. But it doesn't have to stay that way. In the next part, you'll discover what makes a good person respected, and why the line between being kind and being a doormat starts with how you show up in the world. Do you remember the first time you tried to please someone and were rewarded with praise? Maybe it was as a child, when you stayed quiet to avoid bothering anyone, when you gave up your toy, even though it hurt, when you pretended not to care, just to keep the peace. And in that moment, you learned an invisible lesson: pleasing, safety, being accepted, being loved. Since then, you started building a mask, a version of yourself designed to be accepted. Someone understanding, helpful, flexible, polite. But this mask comes at a cost. Slowly, you begin to forget where your will ends, and others begin. You smile when you're hurt. You say, "It's okay," when you're angry. You give in, even when you know you're right. And the worst part, you believe that this is a virtue. But here's the raw truth, the one no one had the courage to tell you. The nice person isn't being kind. They're scared. Scared of upsetting others, scared of being rejected, scared of being called selfish, difficult, ungrateful. The nice person isn't doing good for others. They're trying to avoid pain for themselves. It's a survival game. A silent pact. I won't bother anyone, and in return, you won't reject me. But this pact is never honored, because the more you try to be accepted, the less you're respected. The more you say yes, the more people expect you'll never say no. And when you finally break this pattern and try to assert yourself, the world turns on you, shocked, as if to say, "Who do you think you are to have your own voice now?" That's the tragic dilemma of the nice person. If they keep the pattern, they get exploited. If they try to break it, they get punished. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever thought, why am I always the one who gives in the most? Why do I do so much for everyone and end up alone when I need help? It's because you built your identity around acceptance, and any attempt to free yourself from that identity will hurt. Because you'll have to disappoint people. You'll have to say no. You'll have to hear people call you rude, selfish, arrogant. But that's exactly where healing begins. True kindness doesn't come from fear. It comes from awareness. You can be a good person. You can be generous, compassionate, empathetic, but not at the cost of your peace, not at the cost of your truth, and certainly not at the cost of your dignity. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. When you live to please, what others see is a shell, a domesticated version of you, a reflection of their expectations. But inside is someone suffocating, exhausted, full of unspoken rage. And do you know what happens to unexpressed anger? It doesn't disappear. It rots you from the inside. That's why your liberation doesn't begin with others. It begins with you saying for the first time, "I won't dim my light just to fit into someone else's world." It's time to take off the mask. In the next part, you'll learn how to be respected without becoming cruel, how to find a balance between firmness and compassion, a place where your kindness is no longer a weakness, but a power. Continued in full. If you want the rest, let me know. This message is close to the limit, so I'll pause here and deliver the rest in one follow-up if you'd like.